Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where Hollywood history repeats itself just a few months later. Yes, it was a little too fast for Hollywood to course correct, but I sure hope they're paying attention. Because, of course, as we all remember, it's seared in our brains. March was overpacked. They put too many movies in there, resulting in a new #1 every weekend. And the same kind of movie, we're going to talk about that. You can't have only blockbusters. Ooh, Epiphany. That's because the streaming killed the small movie. So now there's only blockbusters left. The theater system isn't built to handle blockbusters every weekend, and they have less and less counter-programming. Oh, it's fascinating. Oh, I hope Hollywood. Well, here we are. I'm telling them. All right, so March, a new #1 every single weekend, partially driven by premium screens that switched it up every weekend for the latest new release. And then here comes June, and what do you know? The same thing is happening, only with slightly bigger debuts because it's the summer movie season. Or maybe not slightly bigger debuts. Some of these movies are looking iffy, and the month ain't over yet. The one exception when it comes to premium screens is The Flash, which at least has IMAX sewed up. The jury is still out on Dolby for 2 weekends, thanks to No Hard Feelings being the type of film that doesn't need an IMAX screen. But maybe it needs a Dolby screen. Let's see. I think it depends how The Flash performs opening weekend. Theater owners, if it's Dullsville, they're going to be like, let's put Jennifer Lawrence in here. But nothing in Hollywood is easy these days. Don't think that The Flash has it easy because by the way, Super Mario Brothers did to a degree have it easy. I've never seen, it's one of the greatest gimmies of all time from Hollywood. Not a single competitor for the rest of the whole month. And the other months are overcrowded, March and June. What the heck? All right, so The Flash will go up this weekend against Elemental, The Blackening, and Asteroid City. Asteroid City might only be in limited release, but for that second weekend, it goes wide, along with No Hard Feelings, which is opening, which could be a sleeper hit, like Seth Rogen's old-school raunchy comedies. This is a small movie. This is counter-programming. Here's our great experiment. Let's see how it does in theaters. In fact, by the way, Rogen produced writer-director Gene Stupnitsky. What a name. I said he was a good contender to maybe take over Guardians of the Galaxy. Last raunchy comedy, Good Boys, which was, so raunchy, but very funny. And that actually did really well, especially considering its budget. And that's how Stupnitsky, by the way, got this new movie. And Jennifer Lawrence, who, by the way, herself is thinking outside the box to try to re-jumpstart her career. She even said this past week that she would do another Hunger Games. Oh my God, never let him see a sweat, Jen. It's too early to say that. Wait until you see how No Hard Feelings does. I mean, I think she should potentially do another Hunger Games, to be honest with you, but it's too early to say it. It's too early to say it. It makes her seem desperate. All right, that's how bleak Jennifer Lawrence thinks things look right now. And, they might actually be that bleak, but I think until we actually find out, she should try and stay cool. All right, by the way, Indiana Jones, which closes out June, it's part of this hectic month, but it will get premium screens for 2 weekends as well, including the 4th of July holiday, until Mission Impossible opens, and we all know Tom Cruise ain't happy about his premium screen situation either. Why the fuss over premium screens, right? Well, they drive box office. I did a recent poll in a live stream, and a number of you said you didn't need to see it on a premium screen, but a lot of people do. 37% of the Rise of the Beasts opening weekend box office, by the way, Transformers, is coming from premium screens, which can sometimes be as much as $10 more additional than a regular ticket, and as I said, are clearly preferred by some moviegoers. I love premium screens. They are definitely my choice. Would SpiderVerse have dropped 54%? Still a strong hold, but would it have dropped that much if it still had its premium screens? Probably not. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 kept its premium screens for its second weekend and dropped just 48%. Maybe SpiderVerse would have had a 4 in front of its drop if it still had those premium screens. I think for sure that it would have, to be honest with you. What's it going to take for multiplexes to add more premium screens? An expensive undertaking for sure. They didn't even want to upgrade their theaters during the pandemic when they were all closed, although they were bleeding money. But what's it going to take? Is it going to take Tom Cruise? Does Tom Cruise need to get in here and get this done? I actually wouldn't mind that. I think that would be a great idea. Tom, turn your pain into gain for all of us. I don't know why he's not realizing that that should be his next big thing. I guess it's harder than making a video about how you should adjust the settings on your screen. Ah, hilarious. All right, make the effort, Tom. Come on. It might be too late to save Mission Impossible 7, but there's definitely a Mission Impossible 8. Think ahead. Think ahead, Tom. All right, so yes, Transformers Rise of the Beasts managed to edge out SpiderVerse for a #1 opening. And if it hadn't, that would have been hella embarrassing. Whew! And while it couldn't match Bumblebee's Rotten Tomatoes score, nowhere near it, it did match its cinema score. That's fantastic. And tripled its opening weekend. Too bad it also doubled its budget. Globally, the movie opened at $170. Not bad. I mean, not amazing. I'm not throwing a party over it. I'm sure neither is Paramount, but it's not bad. Especially with $40 million coming from China. Yes, China is still open to some Hollywood movies. Even SpiderVerse has done okay there with $34.1 million. They sure love Marvel in China to a degree. So huzzah! Glad that the Chinese marketplace is still there. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting for Fast X. But with such heavy hitters coming up, Transformers could still find itself on digital relatively soon, just like Fast X. Still, with this opening and these audience scores, Paramount and Hasbro will definitely make the movie that they teased. I don't want to have any spoilers if you haven't seen Transformers or you're waiting to watch it on digital. But they tease a new movie at the end, and I think they'll definitely make it. Transformers Rise of the Beasts played to a very diverse crowd. And forever. As long as they've been doing demographic breakdowns, Caucasian audiences have historically been the biggest demographic for all big movies. But more and more now, particularly this year, we're seeing audiences of color drive the box office. So expect more and more movies catered to them from not only on-screen talent, but behind-the-screen talent as well. A lot of great opportunity. This should create a lot of great opportunities for talent of color, again, in front of and behind the camera. Now, speaking of catering to audiences of color, why the heck would Hollywood release The Little Mermaid, SpiderVerse, and Transformers Rise of the Beasts back to back to back? All family movies, all with leads of color. Although, I think clearly they're hurting each other a little bit at the box office, but it is impressive that diverse audiences can support all three movies simultaneously, and none of them are tanking, so at least domestically. So that is impressive, and just goes to show how much that audience is growing and how much purchase power they have at the box office. SpiderVerse is at $225 domestic after just its second weekend and $390 global, more than the first film made in its entire run on both counts, domestic and worldwide. But interestingly, while The Little Mermaid is tanking overseas, some of you are like, it's doing good in Japan, Grace. That might be, but it's doing just awful everywhere else. And Transformers Rise of the Beast seems to be on solid footing overseas. SpiderVerse overseas numbers are weak. They're not horrible, but they're not great. That's what's keeping it from fully performing like a live-action comic book movie, by the way. I think at this rate it'll get to around 600 to 700 million. 700 million might be a little bit on the wishful thinking side, but I think it'll get to 600, hopefully. That would be great, considering where the first one ended up. Still some tinkering to do there, I think, though. Still some tinkering. Apparently, they haven't even started the next movie. What? That's not coming out next year. How long are we going to have to wait for that? Don't do a cliffhanger ending if you haven't even started the next movie. I was under the impression it's dated for next year. But, at least they haven't even recorded any dialogue for it. I'm nervous. All right, so. And also, don't worry, SpiderVerse is not only a big hit, but it's a pop culture phenomenon and has cemented another fan favorite superhero for Sony and Marvel. In fact, I'm sure they're fighting over him right now. Mr. Miles Morales. Is he just for Sony? Will Amy Pascal share him with Kevin? Kevin hasn't wanted to share any of his toys. But at least just, beyond the Tom Holland movies. But anyway, look at him. At the upcoming Summer Game Fest, they debuted the cover art for Spider-Man 2. And who's on there right next to Peter Parker? Miles Morales. Thank you very much. What a star. By the way, I'd also like to add that having movies of a similar nature come out so close to each other cuts short the conversation about the movie which had just come out. Hollywood is all about figuring out the theatrical window these days, but they need to think about the social media window as well. We are even seeing that on days where it's like some people tried to put some announcements out on Thursday when Summer Game Fest was on, and you're like, what, are you kidding me with this? So I think they should think about that. Again, April was wide open, and I think maybe Transformers would have done a little bit better there, to be honest with you. Although maybe Super Mario Brothers was also a phenomenon, maybe it would have steamrolled right over it. Although Transformers is taking on SpiderVerse, so Transformers has a little weight to throw around too, thank you very much. All right, as for the Little Mermaid, as I said, the news here ain't great. I'm sorry to say. The movie is even starting to fall behind Aladdin domestically. Remember for a while it was a little ahead of Aladdin? Now it's fallen behind at this point. Can the movie make it to $500 million? I mean, I thought it would make $1 billion like all the previous Disney live action Renaissance remakes, but it's not even, I think it's going to be close to get to $500 million, but it could do it. But I think it's extremely unlikely it'll even get to 600 now. The movie's only real remaining hope at this point is to become a Disney Plus juggernaut like Moana and Encanto. And I gotta say, we were side-eyeing Lin-Manuel Miranda. We were like, I don't know about you, man, in the theatrical space. And I'm back to feeling that way. I mean, I'm surprised that Moana is still full steam ahead. Although Moana is the Disney Plus juggernaut. But people seem awfully upset they're not just getting Moana 2 animated. All right, but you know what was interesting about this weekend's box office? Even with 2 new strong movies at the top, SpiderVerse just came out last weekend, the drops were pretty low for the rest of the top 10. I mean, look at this. The Little Mermaid fell just 45%. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, 34%. The Boogeyman, 44%. People are watching that. Fast X, 46%, which is impressive considering it hit digital this weekend. And look at Super Mario Brothers go, 37% in its 10th frickin' weekend. Woo! And that's been on digital for a while too. Now, of course, the big question is, what will The Flash do to the marketplace when it opens next weekend? Elemental might do some damage as well, even beyond The Flash as a family film. The Flash is supposed to be a family film. You know what? They both, by the way, could also be huge flops. It's very nervous, I think. I'm sure both Disney Pixar, and Warner Brothers DC are sweating bullets about next weekend. But it's going to be fun for us, whichever way it goes. It's going to be juicy. So, but maybe The Flash, maybe it's a huge hit. We don't know. Able to open past, it just has to break 100 million. If this thing can open past 100 million, it'll be champagne and caviar for everybody. Although Warner Brothers Discovery, I think, is a little cheaper than they used to be. So they're probably like, I don't know, soda and crackers. All right. Anyway. Maybe it'll take all the air out of the box office, Or with so many other options, opening the same weekend and all these holdover movies still available, The Flash could end up being largely ignored by moviegoers and not disrupt anything. Maybe that's why Warner Brothers wanted 2 weekends on at least IMAX, as hopefully word of mouth might end up being a factor. It hasn't been a factor so far with all the advanced screenings they've been doing, like no word of mouth at all. And also, as I said in a recent live stream, it seems to be that you have to see The Flash for yourself. You're not going to believe anybody that it's actually a good movie because the ad campaign and all the drama around it are just too distracting. It's going to have to be a leap of faith. And people sometimes reserve leaps of faith for the much more cost-effective leap of faith thing, which is streaming or digital. So I think there's a chance that people might see The Flash later on digital or on Max and be like, wow, what do you know? It was a great movie, but they didn't see it in theaters. All right, so we'll see. I mean, James Gunn pushed The Flash hard. He stayed away from Black Adam because he was upset. He was competing with Dwayne Johnson. Even after he got it, he was like, oh, what? I don't know that movie. But with The Flash, he's been promoting it very, very hard. So he's really taken some ownership of it. So this is a huge test for how DC fans feel about the brand under Warner Brothers Discovery's leadership. And they might decide to show how they feel with their wallets, which is really the only way to get studios to listen. So we'll see what you guys say next weekend. All right, this is also a big test, although it's funny, like for instance on Netflix, they started the password protection in the US and subscriptions went up. And people were like, no, that's not what you were supposed to do. That's not the message we were supposed to send. So I think the jury's still out on what message might come in next weekend. And I'm very excited to see it and curious to see what it is. All right, this is also a big test for actors caught up in scandal. Even with a brilliant performance, will Ezra Miller's off-camera behavior be too much for many moviegoers, enough moviegoers to make a difference at the box office? A lot of other actors are going to be watching this movie very closely, and studios who are still deciding what to do, including Warner Brothers Discovery, which doesn't know what to do with Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller will be showing up on the red carpet for the only premiere tomorrow in Los Angeles, and let's see how they conduct themselves. It's also worth noting that just like casting leads of color in major blockbusters, this is a big test for casting non-binary LGBT leads, which makes it all the more unfortunate that Miller has cast such a dark shadow over the film with their behavior. Again, the film is phenomenal, as is Miller's performance, but if a fantastic movie opens in a forest of drama, will anyone see it? We'll find out next weekend. Over on streaming, let's start with Nielsen, per usual. Queen Charlotte still reigns supreme on the overall chart, but wow, look J-Lo go. This was the debut weekend for her Netflix movie, although we know from Netflix's charts that from the past few weeks that we've been looking at that she was just getting started here. Truly, this is her extraction. She finally did it. She was making so many movies, she threw so much stuff up against the wall, and something finally stuck. Good for her! And Sony's A Man Called Otto continues to do extremely well on Netflix in its second week on the service. Ted Lasso is managing to stay on the overall chart, a good sign for a potential Jason Sudeikis-less season 4. I mean, season 3 kind of was Jason Sudeikis-less. He had some great moments, but I think that seems to be the direction they're headed. While Sweet Tooth managed to pop back into the top 10 thanks to lack of competition. Whew, not a lot happening on streaming right now. Over on the originals chart, Mrs. Maisel has gone up a few spots. That's nice, while The Diplomat is managing to stick around after its first few very strong weeks. And as we said when we saw Queen Cleopatra on Netflix's own charts, these small numbers just don't make the controversy worth it. With acquired shows, Succession still down towards the bottom. Whew, where's the momentum? This was even the week of its shocking presidential election episode. What's going to move the needle on that? We'll see what happens when it finally airs the finale. While with movies, none of them could even come close to J-Lo and Tom Hanks. T-Ha. That's his celebrity name. T-Ha. All right, so anyway, but look, Hasbro, G.I. Joe, there's still some interest there. Wink, 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 wink. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Well, this was also the week that Spider-Man Homecoming became available on Disney Plus and managed to place here right above longtime favorites Moana and Encanto. With Netflix's own charts for just last week, there she is again, Jennifer Lopez, mothering up a storm at number 1 for the 4th straight week. Meanwhile, there was little interest in seeing Andrea Riseborough's now infamous performance into Leslie, which just hit the service. As for shows, is Arnold in the midst of a comeback? He could be. FUBAR is a very solid number 1 for the second week in a row, and we'll see next week how the Arnold documentary is doing. And this is the second half of the final season of Manifest, giving us a soft number 2 right behind FUBAR. XO Kitty also seems to be a successful, if not huge success, but a successful To All the Boys spinoff, still very high up on the chart on its 3rd week. On iTunes, there's Fast X at number 1. I mean, at least it's number 1. It could be worse, Vin, but not by much. He's got to be embarrassed. You know the kind of guy he is, that his film went to digital so quickly. Meanwhile, look at this. Super Mario Brothers and the first SpiderVerse are animation phenomenons, right next to each other. And I hope this maybe lights a fire under Disney, as other animation studios have suddenly become much more competitive. Interestingly, here's another epiphany for you. Both are using outside IP. Should Disney Animation and Pixar consider working with outside IP? They always like to do homegrown stuff. But I mean, they have a lot of their own in-house IP as well. They don't even have to go outside the company. Star Wars is going over to Studio Ghibli, although, of course, Disney has a very good relationship with them. But, I mean, why doesn't Star Wars go over to Disney Animation and Pixar? Thank you. Although, with the way Disney Animation and Pixar are going right now, if I were the other divisions of Disney, I'd be nervous to go over there. I'd be like, don't mess up my IP. I'm having enough problems on my own, man. All right, and I'm thrilled so many of you are discovering Blackberry on digital. That's where I saw it, as I recommended to you, and it is a fantastic film. Glenn Howerton for Best Actor, at least at the Golden Globes, man, if they're still having them. At least there, they divide the categories so there's more opportunity. But alas, Judy Blume's classic, just released on digital, barely was able to crack the top 10, while Master Gardener didn't even make the top 10 at all. That had also just come out. As for this coming weekend, it's Father's Day weekend. Don't forget about Dad. Are you seeing a movie for Father's Day weekend? What has Dad selected? He's got a lot of choices. So The Flash finally hits theaters for everyone to see. No more early screenings. Did they have too many? We'll find out. But there's also Elemental, as I said, The Blackening, and Asteroid City in limited release. On digital on Tuesday, you can finally watch at home and perhaps turn off or fast forward the very controversial and divisive 3-hour opus, which is Beau is Afraid. And then with streaming movies on Friday, Extraction 2, I think perfect for Dad. My dad's doing The Flash and Extraction 2. That's what he's chosen, and I'm excited about it. That debuts on Netflix. The review embargo, by the way, lifts Thursday. So I'll be watching both those movies for a second time over the weekend, and I think I'm going to have a great time. Disney Plus, I haven't watched Extraction 2 yet, but I'm going to watch it the next day or so, because again, I can review it on Thursday. Disney Plus has their Stan Lee documentary, which they only just recently started advertising. As for series, the Tony Awards are tonight on CBS. Rejoice, theater fans! With Ariana DeBose, herself starring in the upcoming Disney Wish, returning as host. Maybe she'll have another Twitter social media moment. On that note, the telecast might be a little wonky because it ain't got no writers because of the writers' strike. They were considering not even airing, but they decided to air, but without any writers. Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote the opening, although, maybe who knows how that would have gone. Speaking of, musical numbers, there will still be musical numbers performed from the hottest shows right now on Broadway over the course of the show. So it's got that going for it. They were already written. Then on Wednesday, The Full Monty drops its entire season on Hulu. That was recently in the headlines, you might have seen. For also, again, of course, it's so much controversy in Hollywood right now. Then on Thursday, Black Mirror Season 6 on Netflix. No screeners for that. So frustrating. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cover it. But Black Mirror, especially because it's opening on such a crowded weekend, I got so much other stuff to cover. But Black Mirror Season 6 on Netflix, while Star Trek Strange New World starts its Season 2 on Paramount+. Then on Friday, Outlander, that's still around. Season 7 starts up again on Starz. That used to be a really big show. I don't think it is as much anymore. But hey, get your money, people who work on that show. There ain't nothing wrong with that. And also, what else does Starz have? All right, so that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of June's box office so far? And how do you think it's going to go for the rest of the month, including, of course, your thoughts on The Flash? Share those thoughts and predictions down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.